Hello, welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. This is a transformation series that covers mind, body, and spirit aspects of everyday life. I want to welcome today my guest co host, Dr. Walker, Oswald Walker, Associate Pastor of the Shrine here in Houston. And he's also professor at University of Houston in Black Studies and many other leaders in terms of community centers active. I think he's also a writer on a couple of newspapers here in Houston, author of many books. And so we have with us an expert and topic on many of our subjects. But today we're going to talk about the importance of identity, and we're going to look at it in as the phases or development of authentic Blackness. And so I'm going to allow Dr. Walker, because I had so many questions about this, and then I had themes and memories and thoughts, and I'm going to let him take the lead on that to say the importance of identity. Let's talk a little bit about identity. What is this?
Lord have mercy.
Yes.
So there's a saying. It's in the Bible. It's in other religious, spiritual text, but these particular words were said to have been over the doorway of the entrance to the African mystery temples in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet. Man, woman, know thyself. So according to all the world's major religions, according to the ancient Egyptians who gave the spiritual and theological foundations for all the world's major religions, everything starts with knowing who you are. Everything, literally everything about you begins with knowing self. And not just knowing self, but knowing your people, knowing your history, knowing your heritage and your culture. Man, woman, know thyself. That's considered the beginning of knowledge. And if you don't have a mastery of who you are, then there's problems and hard times are going to follow you in anything and everything you seek to do. If you don't know who you are, you don't know your history, if you're not grounded, if you don't feel good about how the Creator made you and who the Creator made you, you're always going to put others before yourself and people that look like you. You're always going to feel less than. You're always going to aspire to less. You won't even be able to dream and envision as big as the Almighty placed in you the ability to dream and envision, because you don't feel good about what you see when you look in the mirror. So this whole thing about identity, knowing self, according to history, according to our ancestors, and according to so much other, it is foundational. That's like step number one. If we don't get that step, we don't get the other steps.
And I think it's so true, because many of the patients and clients that I see, many of them question everything that they do. They don't have like a center point or a place in which they would derive their answers. They have nowhere to go, and so they're constantly asking other people about their judgment, about their decisions, and they have no idea that they have the answers. They're just needing to know more about where they come from and who they are and how they feel and think about things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you would say that, because even education, right? The 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 word itself actually means to draw out. It's not about teachers putting something into your brain, but it's drawing out the excellence that God has already placed there.
Yes.
And so when you said so many of your patients don't realize that they have the answers within inside of them, that's the first thing I thought of, that we have so much inside of us at our core, in terms of who we are and who God made us. That's why one of the reasons why it's just so important for us to take identity way more important than we do right now.
Mm-hmm. And when we listen to something, identity kind of helps you. And that when you listen to things around you, you can begin to draw them to the center to have, you can see the connection between things. But when your identity, seemingly based on what you just said, if your identity is broken or it's not firm or it's not connected, the thoughts for identity, then the things that you see around you are disconnected. You see that you cannot find the thread of meaning.
and thus you see um, the thinking behind uh, what those human beings who enslaved other human beings, you see the reasoning behind their actions, right? John O'Killen said, you know, if you want to transform a human being into a slave, is you convince them to think only about themselves, to see themselves only as individuals and not connected to to other people. Um, but look at all the other actions that were taken that tried to break Black people's spirit and humanity, right? Outlawed from speaking our own language, outlawed from worshiping God in ways that spoke to our spirits, outlawed from using the drum, which was the original language, right? The original communication device, outlawed from gathering together in groups, which was our nature, connection, and community, outlawed from all the things that made us human and that reminded us who we are, of our identity. So if you could get us to stop doing those things that were inherently us, um, then what you said could happen, right? Then everything becomes disconnected and we can't
Mhm.
learn lessons and we can't explore and be all we are created to be.
And I think that that's all around us even today. But most people have not formed their identity in a manner where they can see it. See, in other words, all of what you just mentioned, this disconnectedness, is going on even as we send our youth off to school.
Oh my God.
See what I'm saying? So we send them off, and parents are not aware to teach in the home because they have not had the opportunity to pull it together. They are more aware of some things through experience and also through verbal stories, but they have not, many of them that I've have spoken with, have not connected it in a manner that they can affect change in their home. And so I do know that what you're speaking about is so crucial. Most people don't really realize, they think that you're recanting or go, and I hear this a lot, going into things that really should stop, keeping those secrets we talked about last week, how things can happen in cities and towns over years, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to talk about them. You keep them a secret because you think you're protecting your children, but actually what you're doing is making your children more vulnerable.
Right, right, right. And we are constantly being taught or conditioned, maybe even a better word, about who we are as a people, as Black people, taught, conditioned to believe one thing. So the white Western world, every institution imaginable. Uh, you mentioned the schools, but it also happens in employment. It happens in spiritual spaces. The white Western world, for the white Western world, being authentically Black has meant for so long, or still means for others, uh, being inherently lazy, criminal, inferior, less intelligent, less courageous, less able to lead, born to be a follower and a servant, as it says in the Bible, like a drawer of water and hewer of wood, as if we were created to be enslaved. And many of us have adopted, whether consciously or subconsciously, those same beliefs that we are less than. So even for many of us, inherent and authentic Blackness is defined as our ability not to work hard. I mean, you're viewed almost as a chump for working hard and giving your full effort or giving extra effort.
Yes, yes.
Inherent Blackness is reflected in our ability to get over and achieve or acquire those things that we want: money, relationships, clothes, with with putting in as little effort as possible. The less effort, the better. Meaning, authentic Blackness means not being committed to a disciplined work ethic, not being respectful of others, but rather looking out only for self, seeing others merely as tools to get what you want or impediments standing in our way. I'll never forget years ago when Michael Vick was involved in, the dog training and the dog fighting thing.
Yes, yes,
Somebody, yeah, I like sports. I'm always watching sports, and some of the dudes, sportscasters, they were talking about, well, why are they getting on Mike Vick like that? Dog fighting, that's our culture. And then Charles Barkley, the former NBA player, now announcer, who I rarely agree with, but he said, wait a minute, that's not our culture. I didn't grow up with my uncles and them and family and cousins raising and fighting dogs. Don't say that that's our culture. And
yeah.
that just put a germ in my mind about questioning what is authentic Blackness, like what is keeping it real. Like I remember when I moved to Houston with my parents and family, I was in the fourth grade. um, I was berated by other little kids for talking white, and my fourth grade mind was blown. I was confused. I said, what
What
I'm
is that?
what the hell? The idea that making really good grades in school is seen as a white thing. All these are expressions of the idea that our identity or being authentically Black, keeping it real, means shunning hard work, means getting over, means not putting forth our best effort, means placing higher emphasis on individualism rather than our collective well-being, means we don't care about intellectual growth and expression, all this madness. But the crazy thing is, if you look at our history and our culture, being authentically Black was all about
That,
excellence.
that's right.
Was
Mhm.
all about excellence. And I'll be quiet because I know you want to respond.
No, I was just thinking. Okay, I had a talk the other day. We're getting ready to launch not only our relationship in terms of couples, but our relationship on the job. How do you actually do that? And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things is that teaching them how to use your family belief, and we're creating family shields.
Mm.
Like your history. Find out what your history is and create your own shield. Use your thoughts, your designs from Africa. What does this mean? And learning as you learn, when they finish this summer, they will have their shield.
I
That's
love
our
that.
goal. And
I
that's
love
right.
that.
Oh, you're a part of it. You just
Oh
don't know.
my gosh. I love that idea.
Yes, it is, and I've been playing over this for years, and I know we need to do this, but we needed to make it in a way that is meaningful,
Yeah.
okay, to them. And so this is the storytelling that we're beginning to do, and we're going to rely on our seniors and our ancestors, and we're bringing them together. So, but one of the things that you said is young people, without knowing, have a thought that they have been abused and they have been taken from,
Mm.
and they have been all of these things minus. And so by not showing excellence is a way of getting it back. This is what I've gotten from talking with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I have put in so many hours. My parents have put in so many hours, and they have gotten only a little bit of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not going to I'm not going to give the man,
Yeah.
quote unquote, the man, more and more. But when they find out that they came from kings and queens and the knowledge base where it came from and all of this thing, and we begin to talk a little bit about that, then they go like, and I say, well, I started showing them pictures of tribes, and they were like, oh, I know somebody that looked just like that. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow. Oh, I look just like these people. So I said we need to do some of that kind of stuff to say where you look like you came from.
Yeah.
People say you look like you from my hometown. You look like that. There's a reason for that.
And
And when they start doing that, then they start. And I said, you work there? Well, then If the table is dirty, you clean it off because you can't stand being next to something that's imperfect. You do your best at what you do, when you do it, and how you do it. You
Yeah.
see.
And what you said about their lack of effort being um, their way of controlling something, that
Some.
that that makes so much sense. But that's
Mhm.
why it's so important for, like you said, for us to learn our history, know who we are, because we see that, wait a minute, there have been more times and more years than not when we gave our best effort and the world rewarded us for it. Um, the way our history is taught now, it's as if our whole history started with enslavement, and so we don't recognize that. But there has been more time in our history as a
Mhm.
people when everything was about excellence, and we recognize that. In fact,
Mhm.
in ancient African cultures, they believed that our outward reality was a reflection of our inner reality. And so, this idea of dressing well and that's not just like in our minds today. That's just people trying to front and people trying. But that was this belief that comes from this belief that our inner reality should be reflected in a beautiful outer reality, not one where it's focused on materialism, but rather high material standards. But we put an emphasis on inner spiritual growth from jump. In ancient Kemet, I use ancient Kemet often, but there's so many other um, ancient traditional African spaces that I could refer to. That's the one that
Mhm.
most people know. But in ancient Kemet, the Sphinx that stands before the Great Pyramids of Giza is
Yeah.
this Pharaoh's head on a lion body. That was symbolic of their belief in what life is all about. We're supposed to be growing from our animal nature to our godly nature. That's what life is all about. We're always supposed to be about our inner growth. That's excellence. But excellence shows in our mastery of things. And so in ancient Kemet, those are the people that gave us religion, art, science, civilization, architecture. They were all about mastering um, math, mastering science,
Mhm.
poetry, writing, hip hop. That's all about the mastery of language. I tell my students all the time, man, go go read. I got Marcus Garvey's book, Philosophy and Opinions, close to me somewhere. I don't see it right now. But
Mhm.
go read Garvey. Go read Du Bois. Go read Booker T. Washington. You
Mhm.
cannot read them without having a thesaurus by your side because they mastered the language. The whole
Mhm.
New Negro movement, uh, better known as the Harlem Renaissance, it was
Mhm.
all about showing mastery to ourselves, but also to the world. Uh, Black Wall Street, which is in the news a lot, was black
Mhm.
people showing excellence in business and grit and determination and hard work and creativity. Same thing in Rosewood, Florida, in Seneca Village, New York, and so many other places. But back to the New Negro movement, it wasn't just an excellence in writing that exploded, but in dance, painting, social commentary, communalism. Is
Now, what do you think really brought that on?
I believe that that is something that the Creator places inside of us, that it's
Mhm.
inherent in us to be all that we can be, that we are driven by something inside of us so strong. You can call it a small, still voice. You can call it the fire inside. You can call it the Holy
Mhm.
Spirit. You can call it
Mhm.
whatever you want to, but there is something that is inside of us that is determined to show the world our best and our greatness. And it comes out in very awkward and sometimes self destructive ways when the world
Mhm.
does not recognize that and when we don't recognize it ourselves. And so a lot of the things that we do are actions we take seeking to give the world our best, or seeking to at least
Mhm.
appear and be accepted as our best, but we get it. So one
Mhm.
example is like the brother that tries to sleep with all the women on the planet.
Yes.
That's his the thing that's driving him is to be his best, but he's playing it out in a very negative and self-destructive way, right? Self-destructive to him and to all the sisters that he's getting over on it and dogging up.
Mhm.
The fascination with um, buying things outside of our economic range just to show people that, hey, we're doing good over here. It's this inner drive to have, like this inner peace and this inner well-being. We don't have it, but we want to show it. And so, we will spend our last dime. In fact, more than our last dime. We'll go into debt to appear as if everything is
Mhm.
okay. Um, but uh,
And
I,
being capitalized on and really not knowing is so a part of not knowing is also not knowing how to harvest and trying to address that need of excellence. See, in other
yeah,
words, you just mentioned something, so that's why we spend a lot. We're trying to actually get to that place psychologically, and not only an appearance to others, but a feeling that we are able to do that, but not knowing that we're not really harvesting it ongoing. It is just a temporary period. So it's
yeah,
like temporary is just it's right then. It's very important to set it like a set point or something of a
yeah.
hope to come. You see,
hmm hmm And I know a big conversation on social media over the past week or two was Monique, the comedian. She had come out and said she had given some constructive criticism to younger sisters who go outside, go to the airport or wherever with what she called bonnets on their head, not dressed. She said they'd come to the airport in robes and slippers and this and that. And she's saying that's not how we were. We used to have this notion that we have to be presentable before we leave
yes,
the
yes,
house. And so, she's being attacked by a younger generation that has a different perspective on that. But what what her words were reflecting was this idea in us that
yes.
we are the best and we should always reflect that. And that's why our parents would tell us you can't leave the house looking any kind of way.
Wait,
You
that's
can't
right.
do that because it's not just a reflection on you, it's a reflection on
But you don't
us
mean
as a
that's
family.
right.
You
Yes,
can't go places acting any kind of way because that is not just a reflection on you, it's a reflection on all of us, which comes back to this other point about who we are and how we show our excellence. We show it through our excellence in relationships and connection to other people. For
yes,
African people, for Black
yes.
folk, our relationships, community, and fellowship is foundational.
I remember I went to Jack Yates Senior High School
Hmm.
in Houston, and we had a very wonderful principal. And I might have told you at one time about the man who, God, I can't think of his name, that had a hot dog stand adjacent to Jack Yates Senior High School.
Hmm.
And it was a thing that the children would leave the school during those years. People don't understand now, but at that time, you could not leave your schoolyard.
Right.
Okay, and you had to stay in the schoolyard. Well, the children had figured out how to get next door. Okay, through the fence. Okay, because they wanted those chili dogs.
Hmm.
And so we saw all of them. This was going on all semester. So finally, my girlfriend and I figured we should go too. Okay, we should get us a chili dog. And I tell you, Doc Walker, that chili dog was so good when I got it. It was so good, and he had homemade chili on it.
Mm.
And I remember this today and how he had the crusted bread and everything. But the
Mm.
point of it is, I did that, but then your principal would call your parents when they'd find out. They don't do that anymore, I don't
Yeah.
think. So, but anyway, they called my parents. I had no idea. So I got home, and my dad asked me, how did I enjoy school that day? He'd asked me, he wanted to know what I had for lunch. And I told him I had this wonderful hot dog with crusted bread and homemade chili and whatever. And he said, wow, they serving everything at school today. He said, well, did you eat your lunch at school? He wanted to see if I would tell the truth. Or,
Mm-hmm.
or where did you eat your lunch? And I said, I ate my lunch at Mr. God. I can't think of the man's name. He was an icon there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, well, now you know, and I seldom got spankings, but he said this, you know that this is going to be trouble for you, right? Okay, because if you had lied, it was going to be mucho trouble.
Yeah.
But now this is going to be trouble. So I said, well, yeah, that's true. He said, well, so after dinner, you and I are going to have to meet. I said, okay, then. Well, he went to whipping on me. And guess what he was saying?
What?
You cannot do this. You have a reflection on the teaching that I give you.
Wow.
You are, this is all this, do you know who you are? This, think
Ooh.
about your grandmother, think about all this. This is what you're doing. Are you planning to do this again? Okay. And I mean, he was just going at it. And
Wow.
so listen. So I had made up my mind that I was not going to cry. Okay. So he was just a going. He was talking to me the all while he was going. And then all of a sudden, tears were rolling out of his eyes.
Wow.
And he started crying. This was all over for me.
Oh my
Man,
goodness.
I started wailing and crying. To see him, the look he had on was like he was going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
He had no idea that all he had to do was to be disappointed, and that would have been enough for me.
Yeah.
So he was disappointed, and when he showed his disappointment and his tears, he never had to put his hand on me again.
Yeah.
You understand? It was from then on. I was like, I know who I am. I have to do this way. I have to do this how. You understand? Because I knew that I could not fall prey to it, because he was naming all the things while he was reading me. You cannot do this. You can't do these things. You
And
see?
that and
And
that and that's exactly what identity does to us when we recognize that who we are. It grounds us, it gives us direction, it gives us purpose, all those things. And I just thought it funny that he was doing a whole lot of teaching.
he was doing oh yeah, you could,
Oh
with
my
him,
goodness,
he
while he
was
was spanking
gonna
you.
teach you all while you were doing, yes, yes. And then when it's all over, he'll come back and see, what are your thoughts now? How are you doing this now?
Hmm.
He'll say yes. So I'll never forget that.
I'm appreciative of the fact that it looks as though we've come full circle now. Um, we had this desire to buy nice things, wear nice clothes, to reflect almost like a fake it till you make it type
Yes,
thing, whether consciously or unconsciously. Um, what we really wanted was an inner excellence and an inner authenticity and peace. But now we've come full circle because Black folk are recognizing the importance of that. Um, for the past couple of years, there's been a whole lot of conversations about radical self care, about our mental health, about people doing Tai Chi and meditation and movements and seeking professional help, all these things to make sure that our mental and emotional house is in order. The tennis player Naomi Osaka, who told the French Open that she wasn't going to do press conferences because that was a trigger for her anxiety, and she needed to prioritize her own well-being, her own emotional and mental well-being. And so the French Open people said, well, if you don't, you're required to do this. So if you don't, we are going to fine you. And she said, well, um, go ahead and fine me, but I'm not going to participate in these press conferences because I have to look out for my mental health. She eventually withdrew from the tournament, um, and she caught some hate. She caught some hate, but what was beautiful was to see how Black people globally rallied to her, rallied to support her. Some of the biggest stars in Hollywood and athletics and others, and said, go ahead, sister, you are doing the right thing because you're looking out for your own mental health and well-being. And now the French Open and all the other major tennis tournaments are bending over backwards to show that, hey, we are going to do whatever we can to make sure the mental health of our tennis players is safeguarded. And so her stance was a victory, but it wasn't a victory simply for athletes. She's putting employers on notice all over the planet that
Yes.
you can't take uh, the mental health of your workers for granted. You can't just treat people any kind of way. So her bold stance, I think, is literally a victory for the country and for the planet. But again, it shows that excellence is not just an outer thing, but excellence is an inner thing. How are we doing on the inside?
And so the thing is that if we look at teaching, if we look at identity and the connection for authentic Blackness, it's like learning how to redefine,
Yes.
learning how to redefine it in daily life. What is authenticity? And
Yes.
authenticity has to come from what is real in the foundation of that. But if we're not, if we're only practicing what people tell you
Yeah.
and not researching it, and I perceive that that we need to help people understand how to get connected through finding the information or making the information. And I'm throwing this out to you, making the information come to the people. See, in other words, because environment really does not allow you to get connected to the information on a regular basis, easily rather, or in our normal everyday life.
Hmm.
So I
Agreed.
wanted to go back through what you mentioned about being authentic and identity. You were talking about the Renaissance, and I was
Yeah.
really trying to get to the different periods. You hear words like African American, Negro, colored. And I heard a statements we were saying the other day. They were saying, "Oh, that's not an African American. That person is a Negro. That person is colored, or whatever." Meaning that there are different. When we have different words, there must different periods. There are different meanings to those words, as most people conceptualize in terms of development.
And the meaning of most of those words were us trying to claim our own identity, our own definition of self. So, the world would call us Negro. So, no, we said we are black. Well, the world called us the N word, or colored, and we took our own words to describe ourselves. And later, the acceptable word became black or Afro American or African American. But all those, from where I sit, were our attempts at self definition, to stop allowing the world to define us and others to define us, and taking the responsibility and the agency to define ourselves. And that speaks to what you just said a few moments ago about redefining what is authentic Blackness. Um,
Mhm.
it was just a big thing for me in my class. This whole idea that keeping it real is, being just trying to get over it and not working hard. And I said, well, that's not what our history shows. Our history shows that keeping it real for Black people meant excellence. We were expected. I mean, if you look historically, we looked at education almost like a religion. Um,
Yes.
we were expected to get the best grades. We were expected to act like we had some, act like we had the sense that that God gave us. And we dressed the part too. We didn't just walk
Mhm.
out any kind of way. So,
Mhm.
but it's claiming all of that for ourselves and not allowing the negative, false definitions of the Western world to define who we are.
Mhm. And so it's really good that you're saying that, because I think we need to get back to teaching, or maybe um, use what we are thinking, like helping our children, helping ourselves every day to begin to ask different questions. Not how to get by, but making statements or themes that you could live by. Creating family themes is what I call it. Like doing your best at all time, caring and loving your neighbor, showing how you do that. Coming up with ways and expressions that children can really follow, that you follow, that shows who you believe and who you think you are.
And
So
who
one of the things that they say is that mental health, if you began to say in the morning who you think you are, then you really have to live that day, because you're bringing it to full consciousness, you see.
Yeah, one of my ministry mentors, he was really big on positive affirmations, which is really what you're talking about. He said,
Yes.
you know, for your own well-being, start the day off looking in the mirror and saying, "I am intelligent. I am creative. I am this, that, and the other." Because the world is going to inundate you with negative messages about who the world thinks you are, but you have to declare who you know you are. And it's almost like the saying that happiness is a choice, right? You can choose to go through a day in a good mood, or you can choose to look at everything negatively. Well, we've got to choose who we are and reflect that not only in our language but in our actions that show respect for ourselves and those we care about.
Hmm. I think you're right on, right on. And then creating, based on looking at being an authentic, creating your identity through authenticity, would be then to set a standard based on how you're going to link yourself to your history.
And I like
Finding some things that would help you have a standard, so that when you say the affirmations center you with what you truly believe and what you're learning about yourself.
and you got me thinking about this young man that I interviewed for my job with the Defender. We do these spotlights, trying to shine a light on people doing really good things in the community. Uh, One person I interviewed was David Landry. He's he owns a bookstore with his wife. He's a sneakerhead. He's a musician. He's this Renaissance man, right? And I asked him, uh, like, were there any words that guide? Did he have a mantra? Words that he lived by? And he said, "I'm really, really glad you asked me that question. I've been waiting to answer that question." And he told me that his father, he said, whenever he had these dreams of what he wanted to do or achieve, he would share them with his father. And his father would always give him the same answer every time. 3-word answer: make it happen. Make it happen. Make it happen. Whatever he was talking about, whether he wanted to get A's in school, or whether he wanted to do good in baseball, or whether he wanted to do this musical thing, make it happen. And so he said for him, that has become his mantra. It's become his business hashtag. It's become the guiding principle for how he lives his life. Every day he wakes up, he says, first thing he says is, make it happen, make it happen, make it happen. So when you said we have to give ourselves a standard and a direction, that's the first thing I thought of.
Hmm. And so when you were talking about doing your best job, or I was saying to the person yesterday when we were talking about getting over and that kind of thing, it's like,
Mhm.
well, who are you going to be? Who are you? Like, for example, I asked him, well, if you had to write something on your tombstone,
I-
what
I'm,
would
I'm,
you?
I'm, I'm sorry, doctor. I was distracted. My beautiful wife just walked by, and I'm trying to stay focused here, and she won't leave me alone.
She won't leave. Oh, that's a good thing. And
I
and
know.
and I know. Okay, then. So see, that's what I'm talking about in terms of creating standard
Mm-hmm.
of connection,
Mm-hmm.
standard of being together. No matter what we're doing, we're going to link together and do it well. And it sounds like she's cooking breakfast in there. So it sounds like it's not cereal. So it sounds like it's hot cakes and eggs. Is what it sounds like to me.
Oh, break it
So
down.
so let's make it happen.
Make it
All
happen.
I, all I want to know is, can I partake?
Come on.
But I do want to say, so I was sharing that he was all excited about this new job and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and I just had, and it was like, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I'm thinking when you go do the best job that you know how to do, keep your mind on what you're doing. Avoid comparison. Use excellent, look at what other people are doing well and try to do yours just as well. But don't compare you or that. Pick out some things that you admire that you can use as your guidance. These are some things that you want to do. And when you go present, stay in the moment, do what you're doing at the time well. And so these are just some things that I was saying that this would help you when you open your mouth, say the things that will help another person move or improve in what they're doing. Avoid saying things negative about anyone. If it's not going to be instructional for the person, then it's not constructive criticism. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that's going to help you to step up the rung on the ladder, so you think. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to keep that and get rid of that and don't say it. So we were doing on the job cliches, like on the job things that you could do to be successful. This is his first day going out, stepping on this job. And so these are some things that I think that when we help people create their standards, and then the thing is, think about how would you describe yourself to your supervisor at the end of the day?
Mm.
You see, and then to yourself, you see, and
That's
that's your
some
standard.
that's some powerful advice, and
Mhm.
I, I I see that reflected in different examples. Uh, one of one of mine and my wife's favorite actors. I hope I'm getting his name right. Lakeith Stanfield. He played in Judas and the Black Messiah and a whole lot of other things. He's just an excellent actor. He plays on the series Atlanta. Um, and he was nominated for an Academy Award. I mean, he's a bad brother, bad young brother. Um, he texted, he sent out a tweet or a text, and he said, "Young brothers, you think it's not what did he? I don't. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what he said, but basically he said, "It is cool to be intelligent, very cool to be smart." And I see more and more things like that,
Yeah,
where it's us trying to break down for us all those negative stereotypes, like this whole idea that it's not cool, it's not authentically black to work hard, or it's not authentically black to show respect. I see more and more people fighting, pushing back against that. Said no, our history shows us that we are all about showing, respect to those who respect us. We're all about grit and determination and giving the world our best self. And we're all about welcoming the good pastor, the good brother who is joining us. And that's perfect timing because I have to go. I have to go, doctor. So this is perfect timing.
perfect time and very good. But thank you so much for that, and I'm sure that Dr. Wilson has made it on the scene, and he's here, and we will look at what the biblical history and how the biblical history supports our identity, whether we are African American, but also mainly support our identity of being authentic and doing our best. Thank
All
you for
right.
being here. Okay, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
All
Okay,
right. All right. Y'all take
okay,
care.
okay,
100%,
very
brother.
good.
Sorry we missed.
Good to
Okay
see you,
then.
brother. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you. Also, Dr. Wilson,
Yes, ma'am.
we're so pleased to have you this morning that you were able to join us, and we're to share your perspectives on identity and authentic Blackness. We covered, and I'm so thankful to Doc Walker for being here. So we talked about the history of the past and how it affects behavior, of how it affects our behavior, and maybe sometime in terms of accommodating to feeling lack of abuse, that we have slighted and not moved toward authenticity. We try to get over, get by, or whatever, but not looking at what we have been taught in the Bible to move toward excellence, and in our history as African Americans, or as Black people, so to speak, or just as human beings, because the timing, there's so many struggles, but the Bible and the history and every day talks about that. And so maybe you could lend, in terms of summary in these next 10 minutes or so, we could begin to look at what the Bible says about knowing thyself, and about learning who you are, your identity in the Bible, and then how that relates to excellence, doing your best every day.
Exactly. And first of all, thank you all so much. And I'm going to start because this is a heavy, heartfelt, very deep, challenging, but wonderful type of discussion. And it's thought provoking because every person in this society in America that's Black, African American, however you consider yourself, there's an issue with this. And sadly enough, there are too many ways to know how to deal with it. And I say that and mean it. So I'll say what helps me. First,
Yes.
I'll start. My wife was showing me this Facebook post, and it was a sister, one of the actors and comedians, and she gave a quick post about the last time she was in the airport. She noticed young sisters in the airport with pajamas, slippers, and a bonnet. And she went on just to say to them in a very, very healthy, encouraging way that they should look to present themselves in a much better way. Okay. So, with that, a lot of people started to attack her because they thought and felt that she was judging them. Okay. And all she was trying to do in a loving way was push them and urge them to be and look and then do their best. Because here's what I've learned: you can't look your best and not do your best. You can't do your best and not look your best. I don't think we realize that everything goes hand in foot. You cannot be one thing and be something completely opposite in another format on how it comes out of you as your image. It all goes together. And when we look our best, we've also been told that looking our best means you're trying to be white.
Yes.
Terrible, which is horrible. Even speaking correct English. Growing up where I grew up, if you spoke correct, proper English, you were made fun of. And they were told you're trying to be white. So let me just go to the Bible about this, because what I've learned, Dr. Lewis, is when you don't go to the Bible about problems we're having in life, you can only go so far as to getting help or as to getting the actual target. Not that man decides that we need to be, not what culture decides that we need to be. Honestly, that's where we go wrong. Culture can only take us so far. But when you go to God, God can take you to the top of everything. So when you come to God, the first thing God tells us, we are all his children. That's number one. And it's sad that the devil has played the race card, the identity card, and he's used certain people in certain races to make other people feel less than, to make one person feel superior and another person feel inferior. With all that being said, what happens in time with that people that has been taught to feel inferior it becomes like a draw and a drag. And it creates this thing where they don't feel where they have the energy sometimes, or they don't even care about just, getting cleaned up or getting appealing, getting a haircut. Women go to the salon to get their nails done and their hair done and their toes done. And when you've been taught to feel inferior, it starts to nag at that. And when you need to do it, you don't care to do it. It ain't even about being white or black. You don't even care. And that's one of the negative effects, Dr. Lewis, psychologically, when somebody oppresses you. Even when you come out of your oppression, you might not have the stimuli to even do this no more. Let me say this. As I watched my grandfather get older, he was a head deacon in the church. When my grandfather, as he aged, he retired, took care of my grandmother, took care of his grandkids, etc. But some days, Grandpa didn't feel like doing much of nothing, but he was telling us he was getting old. He didn't have the mindset that he used to, the exuberance, the zeal. It was leaving him, but he was aging. That was understandable. And I would look at him and I understood. But how do you start doing things like an old person and you're still in your 20s, your 30s, your 50s? That means something has happened to us psychologically that has made us feel as though we're lack. So when it comes for us to naturally feel comfortable within ourselves and to present our best, whether it's school, Dr. King said, if you're going to do something, act like you're Michelangelo painting a picture. That's what he said. He said, you're a street sweeper. Sweep the streets like you're the very, very best. But the way we think and the way we behave sometimes, we only get to the amount of what is being presented to us. We're not trying to be the best. We're trying to be whatever we feel. And the problem is when you go by what you feel, you don't feel it, but you don't know that. Go ahead, Dr. Lewis.
I was just going to say, even in therapy, they say start off with how you feel to get out of how you feel. And so one of the things they have you play this music. Don't play music initially, trying to pretend like you don't feel what you do, but know that you're not going to remain that way by set up a series of music, and then you end up playing the music the way you want to feel before you leave that house, before you leave the bedroom or the area. So you begin to expand where you are, your emotions and your beliefs about where you are. So you have to start out with the belief that the way you feel right then is not the way that you want to feel, expected to feel, should feel, or anything. So you know you're going to break out of it. So you use how you know how to break out of it. So you teach yourself how to do that. But I wanted to make a point, what you mentioned. Okay, you mentioned that in society that we move, we adopt, and we take on these things that are done. But I think we have to learn to look at how those things come to be. And that generally, when we're studying, we find that people who are inferior, the feeling of being inferior or less than at the moment, creates oppression. People generally do not oppress another unless they're feeling an absence of a need for more control. So the more greed, or the more need for control actually says that I need to step on the other person to raise myself higher. And we can do that through communication, verbally or behaviorally, or things we do or do not do. And so one of the things that I want, when we teach our children and say those things to ourselves, it teaches us that we need to not accept a lot of those things as our own. We're moving away and looking at what we need to believe and read and know.
Correct.
As opposed to accepting what someone is giving, teaching, or showing.
Precisely. And one of the things, Dr. Lewis, and thank you for bringing that out, as you come to God, the beauty of God, the best thing about him, all of these things that goes with culture, that goes with country, that goes with environment, that goes with history of culture, environment. When you come to God, God is higher than any culture. God is higher than any country. God is higher than any environment. Why am I saying this? If we've been tricked to think that we need to be like this or like that, when you come to God, he don't tell you you're right to be like this or like that, go to the left or the right. He says, forget all that. Come to me, and instead of making you black or white, rich or poor, educated or uneducated, I'm going to make you righteous. I'm going to make you holy. Why does he take us in righteousness and holiness? Because it supersedes blackness. So what if the blackness taught is negative? In us studying the blackness that we've been given to some degree might not ever bring us where we need to be. It might always keep us bound, but we don't know that, because the people that originated this way of living, which is black or white, may have had a negative intent, but we don't know that. The origin, we don't know the origin of the things we are presented with. So with God, when you come to him, he takes you higher than all of what's in the environment. And when you go higher, being righteous is better than being black. Being righteous is better than being white. Being holy is better than being rich. Being wise is better than being smart.
Yes, yes,
things we've been taught.
Yes.
All we know is what the environment dictates. But the problem is, sadly enough, somebody tapped into the environment and started dictating what we were to learn and who were to be able to learn it. So really what the environment is doing is further messing us up.
Yes.
So we have to come back to God. To bring God. We have to get some cleanliness. We got to get some holiness. We got to get peace. We got to be able to come to ourselves and feel good about ourselves again. Not the black way or the white way. Both of those ways won't lead us to where we need to be, where we used to be. Because where we used to be has been lost and destroyed. We've always been ascribing to try to find that. And the problem is, if you read something that's still not pure, it's still not going to ultimately help you. I'm going to read this scripture. Philippians. It says, finally, brothers, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any kind of praise, think on these things. What we don't realize, just living, trying to be a father, a mother, a friend, a schoolmate, an employee, an employer, just trying to be human. There's a lot of negative stuff that we have every day. And then when you put on top of that, what has been done to the black race, you got natural stuff that you got to deal with. Then you got somebody that has played with our intelligence and redefined how we think. You got all this that we have to comb through and still have some peace. Well, one thing I've learned, what has helped me personally, and what I'm called now to help others with, is how to find true peace. That way I don't need any outside sources, Dr. Lewis. I don't need drinking to make me feel better. I don't need smoking to make me feel better. I don't have to yell at my woman to make me feel like a man. I don't have to talk down to my woman to make me feel like a king. I don't have to look down at my black people to make me feel better. I don't have to feel anger at white people to make me feel better. I don't have to do none of that, because God has given me righteousness and holiness, and it has helped me psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually rise above. And that's where a lot of us are still battling. It's down here, we're trying to be all these things where the origin of it just might not be well. So what I've learned to supersede all this, go to God. God is the holiest and the righteous. And whatever we're dealing with, his son Jesus Christ dealt with the same thing times 1,000, and he was a perfect human being. So the way he coped was astonishing to me. So what I'm saying to people, we have to go back to our Savior, because through everything that we have to still go through, even getting good things, it still might not be enough. Let me give you this quick example. I know a lot of millionaires right now, Dr. Lewis. I know a lot of people with degrees right now. They're still thinking negative about themselves, being Black. And it's like, well, I thought the money was the problem. I thought access was the problem. Well, we're getting access. We're getting money. We're getting power, Dr. Lewis, but we're still losing. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. We're right on track. We're looking at that, and I want to leave the audience with the whole idea that we're talking about identity, to hold on to your identity and to define and develop your identity and find it's in you, and begin to read the references that we have spoken about on the show and begin to talk, and we will have more information. You'll be able to go to our website starting Wednesday, the 10th, June the 10th, and you'll be able to get things or references from Bible or references from different things, and you can also leave some notes, okay? And we'll be able to help each other move in that manner. So I want to say this. We've talked about a lot, so I want to leave this. Remember this, renew beliefs, just as what we spoke about today. Rebuild your faith and reconnect families and communities. For it is not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines health, happiness, and success. And just think about what we talked about today. Send us some comments. You can put it on wrc-houston.com. You can email us at ips.health1@gmail.com. You can text us 281-381-2276. Leave any questions. Join us. We can send you, if you leave us your email, we'll send you a link to our Saturday Wellness, which we cover many of these topics. And we'll look forward to that. I do want to give this one announcement. The announcement of our Unload Before You Explode event, how to find and keep the love of your life, which uses a lot of the things we talked about today. But we're looking at relationship building. We're so needed in the community, in all of our communities. So please, it'll be on Eventbrite. You can go there and sign up for it. If you don't want to attend, encourage people in your congregation, in your community, and your friends to attend and be there. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. Thank you.